It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Mr. Smooth and Savvy is joined by guests from all walks of life, from the entertainment industry to authors to political and social commentators, the famous and not so famous, the controversial and the light and fluffy. We have it all. Now, here's Douglas Coleman.
Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, Cece Robinson. Hello, Cece. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, Douglas?
I'm doing fine, thank you. Thank you for coming on this
Excellent.
show. Well, this is your first time on this show, right?
It is, yes.
Okay. Well, welcome. We're happy to have you. And I know you're here
I'm happy to be here.
Promote a book, and your book is called Deception. Before we get to your book, though, give us a little bit of your backstory. You're a medical doctor?
I am.
Oh, okay.
If you look at my career path or my resume, it seems a bit meandering, but it all makes sense to me. At least it did in the moment as I was making decisions. Yeah, I'm actually a trained economist and banker. I was in financial services industry and banking for 6 years, and it just felt weird to me to be selling money. And I retrained and went to medical school with the hopes of really opening clinics in underserved areas. And I was thinking the United States, but plans change. And by the time I got my master's in public health and my medical degree, we were fighting in Afghanistan. And I basically started a nonprofit, and we did work in post-Civil War nations, including Afghanistan, and in Colombia, in the mountains where the rebels were active, and also in Sierra Leone after their civil war. And so the many years of doing that work and with small children, that just became very difficult after a while. And when, in 2013, we moved, my family moved from Nashville to Cincinnati, where we live now. And I kind of left that behind and left medicine behind and became our director of finance and sort of the keep it legal and keep us solvent at our church that we helped start up here in Cincinnati. So that's been my journey. I'm still an associate pastor there, still do finance 12 years later, and started authoring. That all started in about 10 years ago after an all-night dream where I saw our nation divided ethnically, and civil war happened, and a dictator took power and separated everyone into our ethnic bundles. And that's where my story starts 45 years later.
Oh, interesting. Well, before we get into that one, I wanted to ask you a little bit about Afghanistan. What year were you there, or years?
I was never there. So this happened,
Okay.
It started in 2003. We took over a medical clinic in that nation and helped run it from afar, basically. And when the Taliban began resurging early 2004, the staff had to pull out. It just wasn't safe any longer, unfortunately. And now we know the history of Afghanistan that just got worse and worse over the years. And now I don't know of any Western organizations that are still in Afghanistan. Not, at least I don't know of them. I'm sure there are some, but I don't know them.
Yeah, I don't know who's still left after the U.S. pulled out. I don't know. So I see three books on here. I see Divided, Caged, and then Deception. Are these all part of the same series?
They are. So I have a series of novels and then a companion novella series. Upheaval is my first novella, and that was published in January of last year. And then Deception is the second novella in that series. So that's the companion series to the main young adult dystopian series, Divided, which Divided, the self-named book, is the first in that series. And then Caged, releasing in June, will be the book 2 in that series.
Well, I see this one, it says book 1.5, which is funny because I've never seen that used like that. Book 1.5. Why did you decide to divide it up like that rather than just going 1, 2, 3 and full length? Is there some specific reason why you broke it up into novella size?
Yes, it is, because the main series is from 4 points of view. They're all teenagers. They're from Marcos, Rose, Harriet, and Jason's points of view, and one from each different ethnic area. And they're the ones that are advancing the main plot. The novellas I like to think of as either like side quests or secondary character focus. For Upheaval, it's actually the prequel to the entire series. It features a couple in their mid-20s at the time of current day. It's set in present day America, and it shows how we got into the situation we got into. And that couple reappears in Divided, but they're in their 80s by then. And so that's all a very fun thing, and they're involved, but they're very much secondary characters. Deception is also a secondary character, and it is Rose's mom, Sophie, and she has a side quest to the national headquarters for the underground rebel movement, and encounters layers of lies and secrets, all sorts of fun. And that's the novella series will be side quests, or villain origin story will be one of them. It will be the story from different people's perspective other than the main series characters.
So what are the underground people trying to achieve?
In Divided, their first aim is to free a secret and illegal labor camp, which Marcos ends up in. And they realize that, okay, this isn't right. We need to free these prisoners. And so that's the story of the labor camp. And then Caged is really Rose's story of encountering a secret that the regime wants to keep hidden. And she figures it out, and they're not very happy about that. And she gets kidnapped and held against her will. And then all sorts of fun happens after that. She has to escape. So that's that story. But the Underground's ultimate aim is to topple the regime. And so we'll see that the teenagers will get it done in 4 books, hopefully. No spoilers.
Why did you decide to start writing? Was there some particular thing that happened along the way that just changed your course? Because it seems like you changed a couple of times.
Yeah. So I've always loved reading, and I've always written. I just never shared my writing with the world, if that makes sense. So venturing into this series, though, really started with that all-night dream where I saw our nation divided ethnically, and it just really, it grieved my heart and made me realize that unless we changed course as a nation, unless we learned how to disagree without becoming disagreeable, unless we learned how to work across those differences, we could end up there. And I knew I had to write this series. I needed to inspire a younger generation to do things differently than maybe us old folks do and did.
Can you give me one example of that?
One example of what?
Of what the old folks did that the new generation shouldn't.
Oh, yeah. So when I was a teenager, Benetton ads were all the rage, and, it was the multi-ethnic look. And I realized that was being portrayed in media, but it wasn't actually happening in real life. It's very easy to grow up in the United States in an ethnic silo, or you may say even a class silo, where you're very white middle class, or you have a different ethnic profile, and all you know is people who look like you, who think like you, vote like you. And you might encounter people on social media that aren't like that, and that's usually the dumpster fire of social media, is those arguments back and forth, because you don't have relationship or context to really discuss amicably. And I just knew that we can't live life like that. We can't live life in silos. We can't live life surrounded by people who only agree with us. We need to go beyond that, move beyond our own comfort zone to get to know people who don't think like us, who don't look like us, who didn't grow up like us. And when we do that, then we have a hope of maybe understanding people in a different way.
Well, I would almost argue that it's gotten worse with social media, because social media creates echo chambers for people. And
yes, I 100% agree.
You know, and when I grew up where people had to interact personally, you got through those barriers much easier than you do when you're being filtered through a screen. And I think we're seeing the results of this technological advance with the uptick in mental illness, especially with kids.
100% agree on all of that. And the thing about social media is it's textual, right? It doesn't contain body language, emotional cues, inflection of voice. It doesn't contain the warmness of real life communication. And so the opportunity for misunderstanding is just enormous. And then people just feel like they go out on social media just to vent. Like, that's the absolute worst thing you can do. Please don't do that. Like, it's so destructive. And I don't understand why people do that continually. But I also know that, okay, even on TikTok or on some of the video-based social media where you can see body cues, body language cues, you can hear vocal inflection, it's still not the greatest because it doesn't allow dialogue in a real way. And so I think, yeah, you're 100% correct. I think social media has contributed to this situation and definitely affected people's mental health. Absolutely.
You know, which is ironic because when the internet first became a thing, my hopes were that it was going to help unite the world. And it's done almost the opposite. I mean, in one sense, you can communicate with anybody anywhere. But in another sense, it threw up a kind of a brick wall between you. It's a transparent brick wall, but it's still a brick wall. And I can remember the first time I text chatted with somebody, we immediately figured out that sarcasm didn't work. And there was no emoji for sarcasm. So if you were speaking to somebody for real, they would get that you were being sarcastic. But when you did it on text chat, they didn't. And that could cause a lot of issues with people potentially.
Yep, absolutely.
And they still haven't come up with an emoji for sarcasm.
No, for a while, my kids are all Gen Z, they were putting a slash and then an abbreviation for the tone. But that fell out of usage. I think it was just too much of a pain to do.
Do you think limiting kids' screen time is a good idea for parents to do?
I think, yes, you got every kid is different and every family is different. But I know for us as a family, that was something that we talked about, and we talked about like how to regulate yourself on social media. And we were our kids are older Gen Z, and so they were at the forefront of some of the social media issues when everyone was saying, oh, it's fine. And I was like, no, clearly it's not. And so, yeah, I think there is an argument that's well documented for limiting screen time, especially in the preteen and early teen years, in order to safeguard mental health.
Yeah,
that's been studied. That's been studied and documented by people far smarter than me.
So your book, Deception, has it been released?
Yes, Deception is out. It was released in February. It's available in both ebook and paperback. Eventually, I will be doing audiobooks, but they're not available yet. Okay.
Well, we're going to wind this down. Thank you so much for coming on. The last question is, do you have a website that you want to give out?
Absolutely do. And I also have a special offer for listeners. My website is ccrobinsonauthor.com. And if anyone signs up for my underground newsletter list, they can join and be a rebel. They will get a Peeble and an ebook for free.
Okay, great.
My gift to y'all.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was nice meeting you and chatting with you. Best of luck with your book. Hope they do well.
Thank you so much.